Welcome to the Skol State of Mind podcast. I'm your host, D Woods. Now, I've been going for a minute. I've been taking my time, gathering my thoughts, concerning all the news coming out for the NFL and especially the news for the Minnesota Vikings. So let's get into it. And thank you for your patience. Some of these topics, you probably heard about them all week. Other content creators have already given their opinion on it, but I haven't gave mine because, I want to be more calculated. So let's get into it. The Minnesota Vikings plan to release Alexander Mattison this offseason. Now, this comes as a surprise to me because I didn't see it coming. But if you really look at it, Alexander Madison had what you would call a subpar season for the Minnesota Vikings. He only rushed for about 700 yards, and he didn't even get not one rushing touchdown all season in all 17 games. So, with that being said, I can see why the Minnesota Vikings moved on, but I'm not finna come on this podcast or go on social media and put salt on Alexander Madison's name. I think Alexander Madison is still a good running back in this league, and I like him as a person. I mean, I'm from California. I live in San Bernardino right now, and I enjoy, what Alexander Madison does for the community. So I'm taking my time right now to thank Madison and wish him the best for his NFL future and hope I can bring my nephews to his, off-season camp at the college, during the off-season. But let's move on. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Now, considering that Quays has already decided to cut Alexander Madison with a move that was kind of unexpected. Now, what I'm noticing is this: the narrative, all off season, ever since the last, Vikings regular season game was, oh, Kwesi is not running the team. Oh, he's only a yes man. Gregson is running the team. He's the football guy. Well, I told people time and time again, Kwesi is going into his third year as general manager, and this is actually the first time he's been a general manager in the NFL. So we don't really know what he's going to do, but I like it. I like the moves that he's making. He's basically set out to, basically get the cap under control, which he has. There's not a lot of players from the Zimmer regime and the Spielman regime that are still on this team. He's basically moved on from a lot of players. So a lot of the narrative that people were saying, they just gonna run it back and Kwesi can't do this. Just wait and see, because I think Kwesi gonna surprise a lot of people, and I'm ready for it. I really am. So let's dig into the scouting combine. NFL scouting combine just wrapped up. So this is how I feel about it. It's like, I feel like the combine back in the day probably was a great tool to get a lot of, personnel, players, coaches together and start talking. But that's just that part of it. But the aspect of, the 40 times and the catching and, all the drills, I feel like we got enough game tape on a lot of these players to kind of feel what, they're going to be in the NFL. Like, I'm not taking nothing away from the players that go out there and excel in the draft, but how many times have we seen players have a great, scouting combine, get drafted relatively high and can't pan out? So I think the tape is what you should measure players by. But if you got to go to the combine and you got to improve your stock, I understand it. I see a lot of people out there, bashing the Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, multiple guys who really didn't go to the combine to actually practice and go through the drills. They just wanted to go to the combine to kind of be in the vicinity of everybody. And I understand that, because if you're a guy like Caleb Williams, why on earth would you do anything in a scouting combine to basically drop your draft stock? You're probably going to be drafted within the top 3 picks. And anything you do at that point, it's going to be so scrutinized. So you might as well wait till your pro day. And that goes the same thing for Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Like, why would you do it? But let's move on. So the NFL, not the Minnesota Vikings, sorry, the NFL might go to an 18 game season. I don't like it. Now, I understand it's probably going to be more money involved for the players, so I like that aspect because players do need to get paid that bag. You know how the young bucks say. But I think about it like this though: we've already went away from 4 preseason games. I understand preseason is a part of football where a lot of fans are like, "Oh, they're not playing for nothing," and it's this, it's that. But I've always looked at preseason for the guys that are on the bubble of making the team. And I feel like there's been a lot of players in the history of the NFL that have excelled in those preseason games and actually got spots on the roster. In an 18 game season, I don't want the players to have to go through, you know, more injuries, and it's a collision sport. So I really feel like the sweet spot is 16 games, but I feel like the owners, they're gonna do what they want to do to kind of make more money, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But I really hope the player association basically comes in there and basically stops it, because I don't even like 17 games. Like, I don't like the uneven, game situation. I really don't. But I just think it's just the owners and the NFL trying to get more money, out of the fans, and they gonna get it. They gonna go to it because they already got the 17. So it is what it is. But on another note, are they going to give the players an extra bye week? So instead of having one bye week in all 17 for your 17 games, maybe an 18 game season, they're going to be 2 bye weeks. Maybe that can try to change my mind a little bit. So let's talk about free agency. Free agency is coming up real soon. Free agency starts on March 13th. I know the Minnesota Vikings got a couple of void contracts that need to be, extended, and then they voided by 13th. Kirk Cousins, Marcus Davenport, Danielle Hunter. So this is what I think the Minnesota Vikings should do in free agency. We're going to talk about the Kirk Cousins situation and Justin Jefferson and, our guys. But I feel like free agency is like already here. You're already seeing guys get cut. You're already seeing, guys, are not coming back to the team, Jimmy Garoppolo situation. So, free agency is already here. So let's talk about this. One of the main dominoes I feel should fall in free agency is Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields is rumored to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Atlanta Falcons, Washington Commanders. Multiple teams should be in the running for Justin Fields. I look at it like this, though. I think personally teams are going to be a little hesitant to trading assets for Justin Fields, considering that they're only going to have him for a year before they have to pay him. So I feel like the team that actually trades for Justin Fields is probably going to already have like some kind of contract already in place, so they won't have to go from that rookie, 5th year to basically balloons to where they got to re-sign them to top quarterback value. Because the thing about quarterbacks are a premium in this league, so quarterbacks get paid that bad. So I feel like once a team that can negotiate team-friendly contract with Justin Fields going forward, maybe on a 2-year deal, then I can see them trading for Justin Fields. But Justin Fields has to be the first domino to fall in free agency, because that opens up the whole thing with what the Bears are going to do, for the draft. Like, are they going to go after Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, or they're going to go after a tackle, or they're going to go after Marvin Harrison Jr.? Like, we don't know. And since we're talking about, the quarterback, Justin Fields, I feel Justin Fields has to be the first quarterback domino to fall, because then we can talk about my boy Kirk Cousins. Now, let's get into Kirk Cousins. Now, just like I said before, the first domino that has to fall needs to be Justin Fields. Now, let's say Justin Fields actually does get traded and goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, that could happen. Just like I said before, would Atlanta Falcons have a contract ready for him, considering his contract is going to be up next year? Or they can go into a direction of signing the Kirk Cousins. Now, I necessarily don't think Kirk Cousins will be back for the Minnesota Vikings, this upcoming season. there's been multiple reports saying that the Vikings have drawn a line in the sand and they're not about to move from it. And I understand it. Like, I just say they eat that 28 million and a half, move on, draft a player, in the first round, build for the future. But Kirk Cousins has to be another domino that has to fall too, because it's like this. Wherever field goes, let's just hypothetically speaking, let's say Justin Fields goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kirk Cousins goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Now you got two teams coming in the draft that don't need to draft a quarterback at that time, especially in the first round or the second round. They might draft a flyer in the third or the fourth, but they won't be drafting a quarterback in the first two rounds. So whatever happens with Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, the Vikings got to be, paying close attention. So let's talk about Marcus Davenport. Now, this might be a little late. I wanted to do a video on Marcus Davenport when it first got reported, but I look at it like this, though. Marcus Davenport and the Minnesota Vikings extended their void period, right? So that basically means his contract is not going to void on the day that was originally set. It's going to void on March 13th, just like Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter. I like that because I feel like this. You don't know what's going to happen in free agency with Danielle Hunter. So if you have Marcus Davenport on your team that you can basically kind of give a contract extension to for another prove-it deal, and he already knows the system. And I like the way Davenport played when he actually was on the field. I mean, he was kind of dominant. We don't know what he's going to be, but I don't actually think, re-signing Davenport to an extension is going to actually break the bank. I really don't. And I'm open to him coming back anyway. So let's talk about it then. Danielle Hunter. So now there's reports that saying that the Minnesota Vikings have reached out to Danielle Hunter's camp on a contract extension before free agency begins. That makes sense. Now, if you can bring back Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport and maybe, draft a younger player, in the third, they don't have a third round pick, maybe the fourth round, develop a guy. I like it. And with the money that's available for the Minnesota Vikings, you still could bring in somebody on that defensive line, maybe a Christian Wilkins. So think about how that D line would actually look with Marcus Davenport, Christian Wilkinson, Harrison Phillips, and Danielle Hunter. I understand that's like a 4-3 situation, but it'll look a whole lot better. So I really feel like the Minnesota Vikings have already moved on from Kirk Cousins. And with that being said, they might be lining their ducks up in a row and saying, like, look, we're going to move on from Kirk Cousins. We're going to go out there and we're going to sign Danielle Hunter. You never know, because some reports say they don't think Danielle Hunter is this game wrecker that he wants to get paid. But shit, none of us know how free agency is going to pan out. We can only see it. But I'm open to bringing Danielle Hunter back. And if he doesn't come back, I won't be too mad about it because the Minnesota Vikings could just draft in the second round for the Danielle Hunter replacement or sign a younger version of the Danielle Hunter in free agency. So this brings me to Justin Jefferson extension. I feel like the Justin Jefferson extension is already done. I really do. I mean, there's a lot of things that probably need to get worked out, but they're not that big of a deal. They're just kinks to go along. Some people say like he's waiting for, CD Lamb so he can beat that deal. I understand that too. He's maybe waiting for Jamar Chase so he can beat that deal because arguably Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. So, he should get paid like it. But I'm not going to come on here and give you guys all, the speculation that's been going on this whole offseason with Justin Jefferson. I'm just going to say this. Justin Jefferson will be in purple for the foreseeable future. And this offseason, I'm not saying when, but this offseason, the Minnesota Vikings will extend Justin Jefferson to one of the highest paid non-quarterback contracts in the history of the NFL. So, 2024 draft. Now, considering what happens in free agency, it's gonna predict what the other teams do and what the Minnesota Vikings do in the draft. But I'm open for it. Like I'm gonna do another mock draft and I'm gonna post it up for you guys. I'm not gonna do it in this video, so I'm gonna keep this kind of video relatively short. But I can't wait. I can't wait till March 13th and free agency goes and all these players are going to be switching, jerseys. I can't wait to see that. But the draft, go get your quarterback. I'm going to keep on saying, go get your quarterback. If your quarterback is Drake May, if your quarterback is JJ McCarthy, I don't care. Go get your quarterback. All right. Me, I would prefer Jaden Daniels, but we don't know if he's going to slide, but we're going to see. So here are my closing statements for you guys right here. Now, thank you guys for rocking with me. I thank you guys for being a whole lot patient with me. Sometimes I don't bring a lot of videos out, after the, breaking news or whatever, because I kind of like want to sit on it because I want to be able to digest it and actually give you guys, a thorough thought opinion on what I feel about the situations. So with that being said, like I really appreciate it. And thank you everybody out there that's been following me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I really appreciate you guys. But you know how I do it. Skol, baby.